see. All right. All set?
Yep, looks great.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me here tonight. I'm glad that I'm able to talk to all of you in regards to the school drinking water program that Eagle has. I'm sure a lot of you already know a lot about lead in drinking water. But I want to make this a pretty informal little presentation, just to kind of talk about some of what I do and what our program's about. But if you have questions, feel free to ask me. That's what I'm here for. And like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that most of you on the call understand a lot about lead in drinking water at this point. And I just wanted to remind everyone that, first of all, water that is delivered to a school or a child care facility must meet water quality standards. The source has to meet all these standards, and because a school and a childcare is a public facility, so they're getting public water, and the water that's delivered right to the building has to meet the water quality standards. But, excuse me, once the water gets inside of the building, it can change. And even though the water coming in is good and is virtually lead-free, or it should be lead-free, the things that are within a building plumbing system can change that water quality from good to bad. And some of those factors, ages of buildings, the type of materials that's in the plumbing system, the amount of water that flows through the building at different times. And basically, there's a lot of different factors that can affect that water once it gets inside the building. But for lead in the drinking water, I really like to think of two major risk factors. So basically, you have to have these two things in order for lead to get in the drinking water. Number one, you have to have leaded materials. It could be lead in the service line. It could be lead pipes. It could be lead in valves and fittings, or it can be lead in the fixture, the faucet, the drinking fountain itself. So you have to have leaded material in the system. The second thing is you have to have stagnant water. If you don't have either two of these factors in a school building, you should not get lead in the drinking water or have it in the drinking water. Of course, the amount of leaded material that's in that plumbing system is going to matter. The more lead you have, the more risk you're going to have of it dissolving into the water. And then stagnation, there's different times that water can be sitting in the pipes in schools. Typically, you're going to have water sitting in that pipe a lot longer during the summer months or during a winter break. So schools and childcares can be exceptionally vulnerable to this stagnant water or this intermittent water usage within the building. So schools and childcares, a lot of them have leaded materials in the buildings, especially the older buildings. And we do have that intermittent water use in a school building, which causes that stagnant water. So because of those factors and the fact that children, of course, are the most vulnerable population when it comes to the exposure to lead and their development. Eagle has developed a school drinking water program. We call it the school drinking water program, but basically it's schools and child cares that we look at. It is a voluntary program, non-regulatory at this point. The schools that have their own water wells, however, they do have to follow the Safe Drinking Water Act to make sure that the water quality within their buildings meet all of the standards. But the program that I run is strictly voluntary at this point. And our goal is to promote water quality within school and childcare buildings. Not just lead, even though we focus on the lead, we also try to promote other things that can give the school good quality water. Like we look at bacteriological things, we look at disinfection byproducts, among other things inside the water. Our program also encourages lead risk reduction. And so we provide tools, we provide guidance on the risk of lead in drinking water in school buildings and childcare buildings. And then we talk to the facilities and we encourage them to do whatever they can to lower that lead risk of in their drinking water to the lowest amount possible. And currently, the Eagle School Drinking Water Program is utilizing federal grant money. Excuse me. The federal grant money that we have allows us to send out invitations to high-risk school buildings and childcare facilities. And we send out an invitation for them to participate in our program. If they participate in our program, what we do for them is we go into the building and we do a plumbing assessment. And then we develop a sampling plan. We send in the sanitarians from the Department of Health and Human Services to go collect the water samples. The Eagle Laboratory analyzes those samples and then they send the results to me. I look at the results. I try to determine, is this an individual fixture problem or is this a building-wide problem? And then I do consulting with the school or the child care administrator to figure out how we can reduce that lead risk. For child care centers, we do the same thing where we go in, we do a plumbing assessment, and we collect the water samples. So once we get the water samples results, we look at those results, and anything that is greater than 5 parts per billion, we ask the facility to immediately take that fixture out of service until we can do something to reduce the risk at that tap. So there are 3 different levels of action. There's the immediate action, there's some short-term actions, and then our ultimate goal is to go to a permanent action that's going to continue to keep that risk low. So if you got at the end of this, if you want to know a little bit more about what those actions are, I'll be happy to talk about those and the rest of my program here. There we go. So the ambassadors in the past have always asked, and Emily and Chris have always asked me, you know, how can the ambassadors help with reaching out to the schools or child cares that are in their community to make sure that the children are being protected and that the risk of lead in their drinking water is as low as possible. So I put together these ideas here this is not an exhaustive list. And it's just some thoughts that I had come to my head. So I think the biggest thing is that ambassadors can simply try to communicate with school and childcare administrators. Reach out, call them, ask them if you can talk to them. Ask them if you could have a meeting with them to talk about what the school or the childcare is doing to lower that risk in their buildings. Possibly you could attend a parent-teacher association meeting, a PTA, and you could maybe spread some of the information that you're learning about lead in drinking water at those meetings, and have conversation with some of the staff in the building and other parents that you know about how we want to be proactive and take steps and actions to get that risk of lead in drinking water as low as possible. You could also try to organize an event, or maybe you could call it a water fair at the facility, at the school or the child care, and you could bring in information and handouts that that are available that I'm going to talk about a little bit more here also. Or you could even plan a community water awareness event, maybe in a library, like a community center, someplace where people in the community can come and you can talk about the importance of the drinking water in a school or a childcare building. And then, like I mentioned, just sharing the information wherever you go is very important. We have lead in drinking water information handouts from the Department of Health and Human Services. And recently, the Statewide Drinking Water Council had a marketing firm develop a lot of handouts and some other things that I think I'm going to go to the website here in a minute and show that to you. And of course, you can share information about my school drinking water program, and you can simply just ask your school or child care administrators, have you contacted Eagle to see if your school building qualifies for the free water testing? And also we have some money that can help with remediation efforts. And those remediation efforts could be faucet filters, filtered bottle fill water cooler stations, replacing or removing lead in some of the plumbing system. And we have money that's available for that right now. So let me go to Know Your Water. And I believe Emily may have, and Chris may have already shown this site to you. I hope so. If not, this is what the council has developed, and it's a site that anyone in the public can go to and get information about reducing the risk of lead in a home, which a lot of this material can also be used to inform parents and schools. And I was trying to find, okay, here we are. So I'm going to show you some of the materials that were developed that you could use as handouts. There's a health infographic that talks about lead and the health problems that it can be associated with. There's different risk reduction flyers. You can't see, taste, or smell lead in your water, but you can filter it. And you can print these off and you can hand them out. So there's just a lot of different handouts. Some of them you can use, or schools could use too. Risk reduction posters. There we go. The school could use these types of posters, especially in their rooms where they have, childcare, or infants where they're possibly mixing formula. So I just wanted to point that out to you, and there's a lot of social. You can go on to Facebook or some of the other social networks, whatever they're called. I'm not that big on the social aspect of things here, but you can do media posts, and maybe that's a good way of sending the word out that this is very important for not only people in their homes to know their water, but also school administrators to know what their water is like. So, um, so I just wanted to kind of point that out to you. And then on our school drinking water program webpage, which was on my last slide of my presentation also, I have a lot of specific information that is geared towards schools and childcares. And you can go through here. There's a section for facility administration. Um, it, we have information on the free drinking water lead assessment program, funding for lead remediation. We developed some posters that can be posted around the schools. Green means go for it. And this will help promote children to go to filtered bottle fill stations and look for the green light to make sure that the filter is still effective and can be pretty self-assured and have a good peace of mind that the water coming from these filtered devices are good quality water coming out of there and safe to drink. And we have a poster for a sink also. So a faucet filter. So we have some materials, a lot of materials out there that you can use. We also have a parent and staff resources, couple of flyers or fact sheets. You can download a printable fact sheet, or you can send people to this site and they can click on these questions and they can get the answers. So the printable one is a nice fact sheet that talks about all things water quality in a school or a child care building. So just something that another resource or a tool that you can use. And pretty soon we're going to have a lead sampling dashboard. It's under construction right now. We're trying to get it to be able to have a link, and then the communities can look to see if their school or childcare did water sampling, what the results are, and know if they've participated in the program that I have or not. Now, one thing about this dashboard, it's only for schools and childcares that volunteer to participate in the free lead testing program. So not every school is going to qualify because there are certain factors that we have to look at to be able to spend this money for the free lead testing. So if a school or childcare is not on this dashboard when we get it up and running, it doesn't mean that they didn't sample. It just means that we did not do the sampling through our program. And then, of course, there's a lot of other information on this site. Sure. Okay, I almost X'd my way out of this whole conversation. I think I did good. Okay, so That's basically what I had to talk about. I don't know if Emily or Chris wanted me to talk about anything else, or if anybody has any questions. Um, and of course, I left the links in the presentation so that people can go to those.
Thank you,
Oops.
Holly. That was great. I didn't know about the lead dashboard that you're working on. That'll be good. Does any of our investors have any questions? And I'll send up a follow-up email with all the links that were mentioned and things like that. So, Jacqueline, go ahead.
Hi, so I was just wondering, my kids in school, should the school be testing the water? Is there somewhere that I should be finding water tests? Are schools required, you know, to test water?
Good question, Jacqueline. It depends on the school. First of all, if your school is connected to community water supply, then there is no requirement for the school to test the water for anything right now. There's no regulation for it. If your school has its own drinking water well, then they have to follow the Safe Drinking Water Act, and they have to sample for all kinds of different water quality parameters. So whereabouts do you live?
I do believe that my school is on a community water system.
Okay.
So that answers the question. Now, I seen you had a plumbing assessment on that one website. Would that be beneficial for me to just share that with the school and maybe ask some facilities questions?
Absolutely. You can, even as a parent, you can go to your school and you can ask them, have you done any water testing? And if you have, do you have those results available for us to look at? And they should have that if they have done any testing, whether it's, you know, their own. And a lot of schools I find have gone through and done their own water testing for lead. So it's very possible that they have, but they don't have to send in the results to us at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can always ask your school if they've tested. If they haven't, give them my contact information, and I will determine if they qualify for free testing and remediation funds.
I just wanted to clarify, this is Patricia Murphy. I just wanted to clarify, when you go into a school, when the school enrolls, what you do is a testing of the water. Is that correct?
Yeah. The first thing we do is we go in and we look at the water service line coming into the building to see what kind of material it's made out of. For the most part, in school buildings, the water line coming into the building is too large to be a lead service line. We have not found any lead service lines in school buildings. And then we map all of the locations of the consumption fixtures, the fixtures that they use for drinking, food preparation, brushing teeth, you know, like in the kindergarten and preschool rooms where they, you know, they actually teach kids how to brush their teeth, and they encourage that. And then we go in and we sample every single one of those faucets or drinking fountains, and we analyze it just for lead.
Thank you. That clarifies it. Good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
That was really helpful, and thank you for those two questions too. That helped clarify a couple of things. I anyone else, a question comes to mind, just feel free to interrupt me as I go on, or email us after the fact, or Holly. I'll include her information in our follow-up email as well.
Yeah, and I'll hang on here in case somebody has a question that pops into their head. And thank you again for listening in and for inviting me here today.
Yeah, it's great, and a good time of year to have you come talk to us. All of our inboxes are filled with lots of school-related things right now, so it's good to know some things that we can do on our end. I'm just gonna kind of wrap us up and give out a couple reminders. Coming up in September, we've got 2 awareness weeks going on that Eagle tries to promote a little bit. One is Source Water Protection Week, and then Septic Smart Week. So look for information from us about things that you can do or things that you can share related to that. There's also going to be a webinar, September 18th, Knowing Your Septic System webinar. That's really aimed at the general public to kind of allow people to understand, their own septic systems. Here, let me share this so you can see. I'm a very visual person, so this helps me. And I will send out information about how to register for that webinar. And that's, again, one of those things where if you can't attend at the time, if you register, you'll get a link to the recording that you can watch on your own time. And so that's going to be our September meeting, is we're going to encourage you all to attend that. And then October 26th, we'll offer some office hours. So Chris and I will just be kind of hanging out for about an hour. You can drop in, stay for however long you want, and kind of ask whatever questions or discussion topics that are on your mind. We're happy to talk with you about. And I'll send out meeting invites for these as well. And then December 5th through 7th is the Great Lakes Virtual PFAS Conference, which we've held. I think this will be our 3rd year. And we'll send out information on that as well. So that's kind of our next few meetings. And then again, with our awareness weeks coming up, just like Holly was saying, the school drinking water program, just getting the information out there so people know that it's there and where it is. It's really helpful. And anything you all can do to help us with that is really helpful. So we'll send out some information on those as well. And that's all I've got. Does any ambassadors have anything else they'd want to talk about, or any follow-up questions or anything like that? Jacqueline, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to share Allegan County has actually done a couple studies about groundwater recently. They are on the county's website, very informative. We're kind of looking as a county at quality and quantity. So there are some monitoring wells that are being installed. Our neighboring county to the north, Ottawa County, also has a groundwater sustainability initiative. So I feel like they're a couple years ahead of us with their programming. They are working on monitoring wells as well, and they are trying to get in with the statewide groundwater monitoring network. So just kind of interesting to see water gaining more attention. Thank you.
Yeah, that is. Thank you for sharing. Patricia, go ahead.
I have a question. I wonder, I'm quite concerned about PFAS, and I wonder why the fish advisory on lakes that you shouldn't eat the fish from is not up to date. For example, Lake Chemung here by me was clearly identified as PFAS contaminated, but it's not on the fish advisory list. And I also wonder, why aren't signs posted at different lakes where you shouldn't eat the fish or shouldn't eat certain fish? People have to try and access online, a website, and the lists are not up to date. So I wonder why and when will that happen, that they'll be made up to date.
Sorry, I was just taking notes. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just gonna say that that's a good question, and I think Emily, doesn't that's really kind of DHHS who determines that, I believe. Um, I know I've seen those kind of signs at different lakes in Southeast Michigan. Um, but yeah, that's something we can look into and try to find an answer for you as to who maybe directly at DHHS could provide more information about when they're going to update that.
Yeah, Patricia, if you could email us the lake that you mentioned. Because my understanding is there does have to be signage. So we can look into that and get you some more concrete answers. As far as that goes.
Yeah, and just an FYI for the lake that I mentioned, Lake Chemung, it was clearly identified February of 2021, and it's still not on the fish advisory list. Because my grandson was told it was not, and that was recently. And he bought property there thinking he could eat the fish.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, send me that name. I just kind of wrote it down, but
I will.
then I can talk to someone from either DHHS or MPART in that area. I figured that out.
Okay.
So it's just for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for bringing it up. Anyone else have any questions? Chris, what did he say the time was that you're supposed to wait? How many? It's a longer amount of time than you would think to kind of wait.
Yeah.
See if anyone has any
8
questions.
seconds. You're supposed to
Yeah.
wait. You're supposed to have a pause of 8 seconds before you determine that no one has anything else to say. It always feels very long to wait 8 seconds. But while you guys are thinking, if you have any other questions, just a reminder that we're always here. You know, we have like Emily just told you, like we're going to have office hours coming up in October. But anytime you have a question, shoot us an email. We'll try to connect you with the answer or the right person who can give you the answer. You don't have to wait until our next meeting or till our next open office hours. We just kind of schedule those office hours. We're trying out different times to see what we get, kind of like different crowds at noon than we get at 6 o'clock. And so I think it gives different people a chance to participate, but always our door is open anytime if you have a question. So, and with that, we're not hearing anything from anyone. One last few seconds of silence. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and enjoy the last bit of summer and the stormy weather.
Yeah.
Ha-
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Holly.